Scary times. Happy Halloween, the scariest ball of all time, and more. Tennessee, Kentucky. A complete preview as we get going right now with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Travis starts us off with the Yankees win. We're not talking about that today, Travis. We've got stuff to do. Okay, come on. I didn't even know there was a World Series. Apparently, neither did Aaron Judge. All right, happy Halloween, everyone, as this is the day in which Caleb Calhoun decides to dress up his pet. He will get to celebrate with his new son, and it's a cool holiday for kids. I was once Anakin Skywalker, which I believe that would have made my son Luke and my daughter Leia, and I guess my wife would have been. That was our best Halloween, but
your wife was Padme. So basically, you dressed up as the man who killed his wife and abandoned his children to go start an evil empire. Great job, Dave.
That How scary is that on Halloween? It is very scary.
You know, honestly, Luke could have bankrupted the empire just by suing Darth Vader for unpaid child support.
That's all it would have taken. Death Star this. All right, so on the program today is Nico Iamaleava, even the most important ball on Tennessee's offense right now. That's a what the H. Today's tough question, does Tennessee football have to light it up against Kentucky? In other words, if they just barely win, as they did against better teams earlier in the year, could they eliminate themselves from playoff contention? This day in Tennessee sports history. Also, Gerald Mincey not playing after taking shots at the Vols. Is Kentucky or Vanderbilt a bigger rivalry? Stat of the day, 5 Wildcats to watch. Vols college football playoff rooting interest will be a part of the last look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. The show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. So here's what we're going to do with the poll question on Halloween. All right. So we are going, who is the scariest ball? And right now we have 4. And the scariest one, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, is actually losing because it is Albert Haynesworth. Eric Berry, Al Wilson, and John Henderson. So that's our first grouping. So vote for those. And then I'm going to keep track of who wins. And we're going to do like 3 or 4 of these polls. So go ahead and add on some in your in the chat board who you think is the scariest ball of all time. But let's talk about a couple that we have up there because it is Halloween, which I think is a goofy holiday for anybody over 18, just for the record, unless you have kids. I mean, I've been to one Halloween party, and I was the prisoner, and my wife was the guard. She was not the slutty guard, as is often the case with female, which is the case with female costumes. Is it not? That everyone's like the sexy nurse or the sexy,
I mean, have you ever seen Mean Girls where like she didn't know about the slut rules, so she dressed up as an actual Halloween costume and goes to a high school party, and like every other girl's slutty, and she's like, I didn't know this was that you're supposed to do that. I'm a scary vampire.
I know. Okay, and I'll share with you too. Maybe I could just go ahead and I'll do that in a moment. There is a barbecue place in Chattanooga that their servers wear those type of outfits the week of Halloween. So that's a good place to stop in and get your
I think that is just, very inappropriate. And I'm going to have to go investigate it just to determine whether or not I would want children going there.
Yes. There's a couple
Did Lane Kiffin go there a lot? Or were they too old?
They were way too old. All right, so hit that like and subscribe button. So out of the first 4 that we've got up there, Albert Haynesworth is the scariest. So you might as well vote there, because Albert Haynesworth not only raked his cleat across a Dallas Cowboys center at one of the few games I attended as a fan, one of the last games I attended as a fan. I just happened to be in the stands, and it was so funny because they didn't show the replay on the Jumbotron because it was so ugly. So I had to call my friend. I said, what did he do? And Eric Berry is on there because of the way he hits. Al Wilson is a scary individual. Now, I don't know if scary is the right word, but intense is definitely a word that I would describe Al Wilson with. I still remember getting ready to work out, being half naked, and I was at the locker room, and Fred White called me. He goes, Al needs to go right now for the book. And I'm like, okay, can I call him like in an hour and a half when I'm done lifting? And he goes, no, Al needs to go now. Okay, so it was stop, get to the studio as fast as I can and interview him.
Can we talk about...
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, just before we get that 98 team, the funniest thing about it is Al Wilson, when you're next to him, you are worried that he's going to just snap and beat the hell out of you at any given moment, because it's like, you're just like, why are you so mad? But then from the very other side of the equation, the most important playmaker on offense, Peerless Price, is the most Zen master guy possible, isn't he? It's almost odd how Zen he is.
Yeah, and they're the 2 hardest guys to get an interview with, coincidentally. Deion Grant would be number 3 off of that team. And then that is on the list, and Caleb brought this one up. Now, John, my first impression of John, remember the Prop 48 deal? You remember how that worked? Yeah, so you could be there in practice, but you couldn't play. And John Henderson was a Prop 48 kid. In other words, his grades weren't quite good enough to go to class, which I don't think anybody does anymore. But he showed up, and he's this big dude, but he had the babyest face. So Caleb put John Henderson on here. But in my dealings with John, and by the way, he's going to be at Sports Treasures, so follow them on Facebook for an autograph signing. Do that, Sports Treasures TN on Facebook. He was not really scary to me. And you brought up the slapping thing for the Jaguars. Now, that to me was pretty scary, but it really illustrates the fact that he had to get jazzed up and mean and mad, and he wasn't actually a scary guy. Is that a reach, or...
No, but that's kind of, but it's with John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth, it's both when they turn it on. Now, John Henderson knew how to control his rage. Albert Haynesworth, once you turn the rage on, he may go Incredible Hulk and destroy everything, and you can't channel it. But John Henderson's interesting. And by the way, for those who don't know, I didn't throw Reggie White on here because Reggie White, even though he would destroy you, he would make you feel like you got saved in the process. He would, as he was attacking you, you would feel your soul being healed when he was doing it.
Yes. All right. There's some others in there, and I'm going to go through the message board, and we're going to have another round. But Al Wilson is taking off with it right now. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. It's Halloween. Let's go ahead and get to today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Could Tennessee, with a win, knock themselves out of the college football playoff on Saturday in Neyland Stadium at 7:45? In other words, if it's a close game and Tennessee does not have a true quality win, could it hurt the Vols even though they won the game? I go to Herm Edwards. You play to win the game. So I don't think a win should ever hurt you. I hate the concept of style points. I hated it when it was a part of the BCS formula. So I will say that it shouldn't, but it could. I feel like everybody in the nation is pointing to Tennessee and their schedule and the assumption that they'll go 10-2, Caleb, as the team that's going to get left out.
Yes, I think Tennessee needs to win with some style points. I'm not saying that's fair, but we broke down yesterday why Tennessee could get left out at 10-2, guys, which is their schedule's really working against them. And Dave, you know this was a flaw in the BCS era all the time, where towards the end of the year, like people there would be one team that had a lot of style points and another team that had a really tough schedule. And it always came down to the two. And honestly, the team with the tough schedule always bore out to be the better team. But if you don't have the tough schedule and you don't have the style points, it's really, really, really hard to make your case. I was one of those people who, quick story on this. About 11 years ago, before I actually took up writing about it, I was just a fan of the sport. But when Auburn was playing for the SEC title, they had just beaten Alabama in the Kick 6 game. So they were like number 3. Ohio State and Florida State were 2-1. And I said Auburn should go over Ohio State because their schedule was just so much more brutal. Now, it didn't matter. Ohio State lost anyway in the Big Ten title. But I said, had both teams gone undefeated, Auburn should go with one loss. And people called me out and said, well, why don't you think why don't you think the same for Florida State? Because they played an easier schedule than Ohio State. And I said, Florida State has a style points. You remember that Florida State team with Jameis Winston, right? It was an easier schedule, Dave, but they annihilated everybody, didn't they? It was insane.
Yes.
Tennessee's not a
scary player, Jameis Winston off the field. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tennessee's not annihilating people. They're not like walking into a game and then winning 63-0 and walking out, and you're like, the other team didn't even belong on the field with them. And that makes it much murkier when a bunch of teams are 10-2 at the end of the year. And now that November's here, they haven't done it yet. They got to start hanging some style points, particularly when it ain't like they can't pretend. And here's the really hard part, Dave, and Josh Heupel did this to himself. You can't pretend you're not the school that doesn't go for style points. He did an onside kick against Kent State. Clearly, Josh Heupel goes for style points.
Yes.
And so because of what Josh Heupel and how he's branded himself, he's got to go get style points. He can't claim that he doesn't value style points. He can't, because Fulmer could pull that. Philip Fulmer could actually pull we're not trying to win on style points. We're just trying to win. But Steve Spurrier had to win on style points.
I'll give you that. But what if it's 23-9 and it's a defensive annihilation? Is that style points? It wouldn't cover the spread and you're just in the 20s. But to me, that sort of annihilation defensively can be almost as damning to a team as just throwing for 350 yards and scoring 42 points.
Here's the problem. The defensive-minded teams that, like I talked about, that had won ugly in the past, but they got in because that ended up being national champions. That is, you could theoretically say all of them, the only reason they won ugly was because they played a brutal schedule. And had they played an easier slate, they would have put up style points offensively. My best example, we always talk about the 98 Tennessee team. Dave, once the schedule got easier, once they got past the first 5 games, let's be honest, the offense was starting to light it up, weren't they?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, once you got to, yeah. And
that was a different day and age too. There weren't as many points scored in games.
But okay, what about, like, let's take the gold standard of college football defenses, the 2011 Alabama team. Remember that one that I think like every starter became an NFL Pro Bowler on that team? You and I both know, even with AJ McCarron, the diva himself at quarterback, if they wanted to, when they played lesser teams, they were still dropping 45, 50 points, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Tennessee, we're questioning if they could even do that against lower level SEC competition. And so that's kind of the problem. Yes, they're a defensive team, But your offense still should be capable of dropping a lot of points against lower level competition, semi-lower level competition, I guess is what we'll say. So that's where I think Tennessee and Kentucky, by the way, is lower level competition. Kentucky gave up 48 points to Florida 2 weeks ago. They gave up 24 points to Auburn last week. And by the way, if you've been following Auburn at all this year, 24 points to Auburn is like giving up 70 points to other teams in college football. Okay, so Tennessee should be able to score a lot on them. And if they're not, this would look like it becomes, are they 2011 Alabama or are they more like 2005 Alabama? Remember that 05 Alabama-Tennessee game, Dave? The 6-3 game?
Yes.
Yeah, that becomes the question. You don't want to be 05 Alabama. You want to be 2011 Alabama. And there's a debate on whether or not they're 2011 Alabama at this point.
Okay, so give me a poll question update as we try to determine the scariest Vol before we talk a little bit of Nico. And what are our four that are up there, Caleb?
Who is the scariest Vol? Haynesworth, Barry, Wilson, Albert Haynesworth, Eric Berry, Al Wilson, John Henderson. Al Wilson leads with 46%.
You go again. What happened to the percentages after a quick message from Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. That does make me wonder a little bit with the Kent State and the onside kick. Do you think Josh Heupel was thinking far enough ahead where he said, man, the schedule could work against me in the college football playoff, and I want to score as many points as possible against lower level competition? Do you think that's a possibility?
It could be, but at the end of the day, I think he did more damage to himself than helped himself at that point, because Kent State's so bad. All it looked like was you run up the score against low level competition, so it looks very obvious. Look, we talked about this. He may not have even made the call for that onside kick. It could have just been the way Kent State was lined up, but him doing it definitely gives off that vibe, and the fact that they're not lighting up, not necessarily, it's not that they didn't light up Alabama, but the fact that they didn't light up Florida and the fact that they may not light up Kentucky all of a sudden becomes a big time question.
Okay, program. But what's the better win? A 10-point win against an SEC team like Kentucky that plays pretty good defense, has beaten Ole Miss, has played tight with Georgia, or 70-point thumping of Kent State?
I mean, a 10-point win over Kentucky is an obvious better win, but it's not a good enough win. And I'm pushing back on the idea that they played pretty good defense. This ain't the same team that played Ole Miss.
Well, no, not. Well, in general, we think of a Kentucky team as playing pretty good defense, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not sure they're playing great defense at this very moment in time, but still, I mean, they could point back to, if you want to do the comparative score thing, which gets you in trouble more times than not, you want to go back and you want to say, hey, well, there is this factor and that factor, and Kentucky played Georgia well, tight, and Kentucky beat Ole Miss. Then if you're going to factor in the way Tennessee beats Kentucky, you should factor into what Kentucky also did against elite teams. I would say that much. But their overall record is going to be really porous, to quite porous.
Yes, it is. Their overall record is going to be very questionable. I think that I think still with given what Florida did to Kentucky, I think it's going to come out to say that Tennessee needs to light it up. Now you could point out Georgia, because Georgia barely beat Kentucky, but Georgia did light up Clemson. The truth of the matter is, Dave, the reason this is a big deal is who has Tennessee lit up this year, that outside of NC State, that's like, which is not a good team, but you wouldn't say they're like Kent State. Since NC State, they haven't lit up anybody that's mediocre to above average to below average.
Yeah, but I never felt like they were going to lose the Oklahoma game.
That's true, but they did let Oklahoma score 2 touchdowns in the fourth, and that was a mistake, honestly. They shouldn't have. Looking back on it now, they should not have called off the dogs on Oklahoma.
Well,
Because
I didn't think they called off the dogs. I thought they were just trying to get out of town. Because I thought that they were so concerned about the offensive tackle issues. And remember, there were 2 strip sacks from Nico because of the pressure. I think they felt like that they could lose that game and that Oklahoma couldn't win it. Does that make sense?
right. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think they just wanted to get it out of town. Click like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. And to be a part of the program, you can do so on Halloween. Oh, where's my sounder? Oh my gosh. Oh, that's the wrong one too. My goodness, my scary sounder. A little loud. I apologize for that. Are you scared, Caleb?
I'm terrified. I'm so terrified. Oh my God.
Are you scared that I'm going to hit the wrong production element? Because that could happen. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Keep cool.
a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, buddy. Let me ask you this question. The question I have for you is this. Is Nico Iamaleava Tennessee's most important player right now? In other words, I'm pointing the finger at Lance Hurd. I think he's the most important player for Tennessee, Caleb. And I've got real concern still about Hurd, even though he played better against Alabama, especially in the final 3 quarters. But I can't sit here and tell you that Nico's the most important player, because if Lance Hurd doesn't do his job, then Nico can't do his job.
So you're asking me if Nico or Lance Hurd is more important?
Yes.
Well, I wasn't even going to go with Nico because, I wasn't just in general, is Nico the most valuable player on the Vols offense, period? Like, what about Dylan Sampson, Cooper Mays? You brought up Lance Hurd. I'm going to still say yes with Nico, and here's why. Where do you go if he gets hurt? And just to give you an example real quick, we talk about the 98 team all the time. Al Wilson was the star of that team. Peerless Price was the weapon on offense. Jamal Lewis before he went down. Deion Grant. We always talk about how T. Martin was kind of more the game manager that just made the play when needed. But Dave, if there's one player you couldn't afford to lose, it was T. Martin, because then Joey Matthews comes in. And I think you and I both agree, if Joey Matthews is starting in any of those games against top 25 teams, Tennessee's not winning a national title.
Yeah, and then with Gaston Moore,
was it Bernie Veazey? Maybe it was him. Sorry.
I don't want to hold it again. I don't want to hold one play against Gaston Moore because he just ran into the game when Nico got banged up. So it's a little unfair to do that. But I will say this with Gaston Moore, I feel like if for whatever reason they wanted to bench Nico because they thought that they had a better chance to win with Gaston Moore, or Nico, God forbid, was hurt, and they had an off week in there, I think they could have a package, assuming Lance Hurd plays well and the other offensive tackle, John Campbell Jr., plays well. But again, that gets back to my point. And football's the ultimate team game. If those guys don't do their job, Caleb, then it doesn't matter who the quarterback is.
No, that's a very good point. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is if they don't do their job. But that's with any team ever, is if those guys don't do their job, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is to a certain degree. But we'd still say the quarterback's the most important player on the team. I guess we were looking at it differently. So, is he the most important? Is he the most valuable? I think in every way you look at it, Nico is, and I don't say this just because he's the quarterback. I say this because of who's behind Nico. If Lance Hurd goes down, Dave, I think you and I both agree there may even be an upgrade if you have to put Dane Davis out there as of right now, given the way Lance Hurd has played.
If he could focus on one position, yes. And I like Larry Johnson more than maybe a lot of people.
But they're working Johnson at right tackle more, aren't they?
Yeah, and he still needs to get stronger. Now, once he gets his mitts on you, he's pretty good, and his footwork isn't great. but I think that he is a player that is going to start to prove Josh Heupel right in his offensive line evaluation from high school and subsequent development. So I think he's one of those players that's going to do that.
I could give you X factor with Lance Hurd. How about that? Lance Hurd is the primary X factor for this offense going forward.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. We haven't even said the name that I wrote about this morning and why he should be in the Heisman race, Dylan Sampson. Now, would this team win more or less games if they were without Dylan Sampson or Nico Iamaleava? I know this sounds like heresy based off what we said in the preseason. I'm well aware that we have a totally different approach. But, Caleb, I'm just if you go, you think it's okay, but if it's not Sampson, it's Bishop. And we would all agree that Bishop isn't big enough to be a featured back, correct?
Yes.
And not good enough in pass protection because of his lack of size.
Correct.
So then would you go Selden? Peyton Lewis looks like he's on his way to a red shirt.
Probably. I mean, my gut tells me they're trying to just redshirt Peyton Lewis, like you said. And so they just to save the year, but they may burn it if Sampson got hurt. And also, look, Sampson's valuable. Don't get me wrong, but you and I both agree, Dave, that that interior blocking is more important than the actual running back in a run game. Sampson turns a 5-yard gain into an 8-yard gain, but this interior blocking creates the 5-yard gain. Without it, you don't even have the 1-yard gain. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think the collection of Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins and Andre Carrick is more. I'd rather have Cooper Mays and Dylan Sampson healthy. Put it that way.
I agree with you, but let me throw this out there at you. With Sampson, he is an instinctive runner. Now that's not a given. I don't think Selden is yet. He played receiver in high school, and I think that's the reason he's not playing. So I think maybe you're underselling Sampson just a little bit on how he maximizes yards because he's not as flashy as a Chuck Webb or some of those guys back.
Okay, but without Sampson, put it this way. Here's what I'll give you a great example. If Sampson goes down, Tennessee turns into the 2000 Ravens, where it's like the offense is not going to be good, but they can get you like, okay, the defense. What they can do is go to the defense and be like, how many points do you need us to get you? And the defense can say, get us 10 points. And the offense, you could theoretically go do that, right? They could go get you 10 points.
Theoretically, yes.
If Gaston Moore is in the game, the offense can't go get you 10 points. Okay, and I think that's the problem. Then it turns into this year's Titans offense with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, where the defense will hold opponents to under 200 yards and still give up 52 points because the offense keeps spotting them the ball at their own 25-yard line. Okay, so at that point, that's what the Titans become with Gaston Moore. And I'm not trying to hate on Gaston Moore. He didn't want to be in this position, but Merklinger's clearly not ready. Or I guess more fair example, the offense turns into the 2005 Tennessee offense, Dave, where the defense is like, we'll hold them under 10 for you. And the offense is still like, we don't know if we can score 10.
See, I think it would turn into last year's offense, and that would be a lot of horizontal screen passes and that sort of thing, and they wouldn't challenge vertically because of his lack of arm strength. With Milton, there was another reason for that. It was his lack of accuracy. It wasn't arm strength. Hound Dogs have not
challenged vertically with Milton. They took shots with Milton. A lot of times, he just didn't always connect.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'd still take vertical shots with Moore, but with his arm, it may just be like a 20-yard vertical shot.
Yeah, it would be intercepted.
Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. HDKnoxville.com. So at the end of the day, are you willing to say that Nico is still the most important player?
Yes, because of what happens if he goes down. And again, I'm going to go back to 98 amidst all the stars. Dave, if you were told you're recovering the 98 team, like midway through, you're told one player is going to go down. Who's the number one player you don't want to see go down if you're Tennessee? You would have picked T. Martin, right?
Yes.
He's number one, even though he wasn't the best player on that team.
Yes.
Exactly. And it's because you were covering the backups that year, right? And you saw who they were.
Yes. I don't even really remember who they were.
They were Joey Matthews and Bernie Veazey.
Oh, good old Bernie.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, like, that's why Tennessee could withstand Jamal Lewis going down for the year that year, because they had Travis Henry and Travis Stevens who could pick up the collective weight. They could win 2 games without Al Wilson, which, as you know, they won 2 games without Al Wilson. They probably could have won a couple of games without Peerless Price. T. Martin goes down. They ain't beating the ranked team that year. Okay.
Al Wilson wins our first round of Halloween voting, and that is who is the scariest Vol. And he won over Albert Haynesworth, Eric Berry, John Henderson. Now, you can't go back and vote, but have I shared my Uncle Dave Albert Haynesworth at practice story?
Please tell me.
Okay. So they're in the middle of practice. You remember Will Offenhusel?
Oh, yes, I do remember it. I know where the stories go because it's one of the greatest stories in history.
Yes. Will Offenhusel was not one to be trifled with. So he said, so Albert was kind of being a little bit of a jerk, and he was slapping the ball right before it was snapped. And I don't know why he was doing it. And Will said, stop it. And Albert didn't stop it. So I've gotten various stories to this effect, because you're on the sidelines and it's hard to see, that either Will cut blocked him, which you don't do in practice, even if that's part of your game plan, and cut blocking is legal, it's not chop blocking, or he just hauled off and slugged him. So I'm really not sure at this point. I do know that the two went at it to the point it's the only time I have seen a player ejected from practice, just to say, just get out of here, go away. And so I hear this rumbling after he's left practice about 5 minutes later. And the rumbling is him coming back with, now it wasn't a barbell, but it was like one of those workout poles. And I still remember Mike Rollo, the late Mike Rollo, great trainer, more responsible for Tennessee's success in the 90s and than you realize. But he literally ripped Albert Haynesworth's jersey off as Albert kept walking forward because he couldn't even slow him down. The jersey was completely off, just shoulder pads. And I'm thinking, wow, this is something. And Philip Fulmer, talk about having the respect of his players, and he certainly did at the time. He grabbed him by the front of the shoulder pads and said, Albert, stop. And Albert stopped right there and completely calmed down. Now, the funniest part about that is there was a rule among the reporters back then that you couldn't report on something unless you ask about it. So at this point, I mean, this is an attempted assault, okay? I mean, this is not just on the football field,
so
right?
And so it was the pole, right? What was the pole again?
It was like one of those workout poles you used to stretch. It wasn't a barbell, but it was a huge pole, 6 feet long, and he's brandishing this pole. So it would have been potentially felony assault. And the funny part is Philip Fulmer, God love him, he was so worried that somebody was going to report that, because this kind of superseded the rules of practice because it was a crime. And I still remember him waiting outside in the reporter area where we would wait for players. And he came up and he goes, guys, what are you going to do with this? He was afraid somebody was going to report it. And it was either me or Brent, I can't remember, said, well, I guess regular practice rules are enforced, and I have no intention of reporting it. It's either me or Brent, I can't remember. But the funniest thing that was said about that whole incident is when Chris Lowe just took a second and he goes, Chris Lowe now of ESPN, he was with the Tennessee at the time. He goes, but Philip, what if he would have hit him? And Philip goes, bleepity bleep, he didn't hit him, Chris. That's all we're going to say about that. But that would have been interesting because that would have been a felony. And at some point, your journalistic nature has to overcome. By the way, it was Albert Haynesworth that was on that poll. Now, Al Wilson is very scary and intimidating. He's also a very nice guy when you talk to him. So coming up on the program, we will get to, are the Vols better off if Mark Stoops stays at Kentucky? Because let's face it, he's about one blowout away from people I talked to in Kentucky from not having a job at Kentucky. So we'll dig into that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com to stay in Tennessee sports history. Stat of the day as well. The Vols college football playoff rooting interest, 5 Wildcats to watch for. Click the thumbs up button, please, and take part in our poll question that is now, who is more important to Tennessee's offense? Is it Nico or Dylan Sampson? Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Here we go.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2024 Ford Maverick XLT all-wheel drive, $31,990. 23 Ford Expedition 4x4 Limited, $66,590. 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4, $47,995. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, let's reset the poll question as the poll question, who is the most important ball on offense? Dylan Sampson wins it, 56% to 43%. Guys, are we just off the Nico bandwagon? You shouldn't be yet. I'll go ahead and tell you that. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary. What do you guys, huh? Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. Caleb put up the latest poll question as we try to determine who is the scariest Vol of all time. It is Halloween. All right, so give us what is the poll question that's up now? Caleb Calhoun.
Apologies. The poll question that is up now is, who is the scary? Dave, this is horrible. Who is the scariest ball? Jansen Jackson, Brent Schaefer, Newkeys.
Okay, for vastly different reasons. Okay.
Okay.
Now let's start with. Hold on. People may not know. Let's start with Newkeys Richardson, as Newkeys Richardson was involved in holding up a pilot for a hamburger, and he also
proof that Lane Kiffin didn't pay his players.
Right. And he's the only person that I have ever seen straddle a punt on a punt return 2 times. He's the only person I've seen do it once, but I saw him do it 2 times in 4 games. That was amazing. So he was scary on the field because he could turn the ball over at any time. Now, the other one on that list that we want to address before we get to, I guess, who should be the scariest one, Brent Schaefer attacked someone with a bat. So a baseball bat, not a flying bat, but a baseball bat. So that's scary. And then you put Jansen Jackson on there. I think it's a little tasteless, but Jansen Jackson, for those that don't know, killed his mom's boyfriend and put him in the trunk for 3 days.
Yeah, he did.
That would have to be the scariest one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, Jansen Jackson was convicted to the lesser offense of voluntary manslaughter, which only was 11 years.
Voluntary. Okay.
Well, okay, but you left out you left out being trapped in an elevator with Alvin Kamara. Okay, that could you left out playing a 1-on-1 basketball game against Tony McDaniel.
Hey, listen, we're gonna have the final a little bit later. So Tony McDaniel, I'd forgotten that name.
Broke every bone in someone's jaw.
I was talking to that guy hit just the other day, and you know what he said?
What?
Blah, 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 blah.
That's Kanye's jawline.
Because he still can't talk. I've never seen a cheap shot like that before.
You witnessed the hit?
I saw the video. There was a video that went public.
Okay.
Yeah,
he just broke the guy's face, didn't he?
Yes, they're just playing basketball, and at one point, Tony McDaniel. I tell you what, it reminded, in a weird way, it reminded me of the push by Omari Thomas. Like, you didn't realize your own strength. I don't think he knew that he was going to break the guy's face, the jaw, the orbital bone, everything that's involved in your face. I don't think he knew that. I don't think that Omari Thomas in the Arkansas game knew that he was going to push one person to the point that he would take out somebody else. All right, we've got some breaking news. How about that, Caleb? Dun, dun, dun. Tyreek King, according to Ryan Callahan, has committed and made an easy decision. Wide receiver Tyreek King is a 4-star class of 2026 player. He grew up just a short drive from Neyland Stadium. The 4-star class of 2026 wide receiver is from Knoxville Catholic High School. He announced on Thursday morning, just moments ago, that he's committed to Tennessee. He chose the Vols over offers from more than 20 other schools, strongly considered Alabama, Texas A&M, and LSU. Here's why this one's big. Is because this is the equivalent of a T. Higgins seeing bad things going on at Tennessee and going somewhere else. Or Amari Rogers, who is T. Martin's son, going somewhere else. He was also a local guy. Higgins at Oak Ridge, and then Amari Rogers at Catholic. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, a lot of the players, a lot of the coaches' players go to Catholic. So there's usually a really strong tie there, which can be good or bad. Sometimes they know that things aren't going swimmingly at Tennessee. They know more than the average prospect. But how big is Tyreek King, do you think, for the Vols?
Oh, this is huge. It's a very good pickup for Tennessee. Tyreek King is 5 foot 10 and a half, 168 pounds right now. But again, guys, he's only if my math is correct, he's only a junior, so he'll be a senior next year. So this is for the 2026 class. Yeah.
Right.
He's already a 4-star on 247 composite and a 3-star on 247. But guys, he did beat out Alabama. I mean, Tennessee did beat out Alabama for him. And also, I want to point this out. One of the things I do, and I've always told you guys this, I look at recruiting rankings, the composites, I look at the highlight reels, and I look at where they came from to say, okay, are they being overvalued or undervalued? Y'all think I trash Nashville all the time, but and again, Derek's coming at me. Derek's coming at me because he's actually a 3-star. He says that Tyreek King is actually a 3-star in my book because he's in state. Derek,
yeah,
you guys always get that wrong. It
You
depends
are
on
hard
where
the
they're
in-state
from.
guys.
It depends on where they're from.
I remember
Knoxville-
when Caleb said Boo Carter won't even start when he's a senior.
No, I never said that. I said Boo Carter's. I said, I don't say the Nashville kids aren't good. What I say is being in Nashville overinflates your star value at times. Hence the reason Jalen Hurd was a 5-star. Okay.
So let's get back to Tyreek King.
Okay, so the Tyreek King. One of the truths is one of the areas where Tennessee's had its best success rate at in terms of players living up to their star potential is the local kids. And you can track that, Dave. The local kids, I'm not saying the local kids all become stars. What I'm saying is they live up to their star potential. To the whatever their star rating is, you should add half a star to it for the local kids, for the Knox kids.
Cooper Mays is a great example. That was a 3-star guy that honestly, I thought he was probably a 3-star guy, and goodness hope he doesn't hear me say this, but a 3-star guy because his brother was so good. Now, I think Cooper Mays was way under evaluated, and Jeremy Pruitt evaluated him, and you can knock Jeremy Pruitt all you want, but that was a good evaluation. And Cooper played a number of positions before he settled in at center, and he's proven that he has been a fantastic player. I also remember game No Bueno said, I remember Caleb calling Dylan Sampson lazy.
Yeah, I'm eating crow on Dylan Sampson. I will eat all of my crow on Dylan
Did you
Sampson.
say you never said lazy, did you?
I said lazy. I thought that some of those past pro misses were based on laziness last year, quite honestly. And they were more based on he was just still learning the offense to a certain degree, and that's one of the trickiest parts of it. But as someone brought up with examples of Knox hits, he's not from Knoxville, but Randall Cobb being from Alcoa, big miss. Randall Cobb out of Alcoa was a superstar who went to Kentucky, would have been amazing at Tennessee. Dave, I know you've covered recruiting everywhere. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. And you're right, Cooper Mays is the best example of it and recently, but also Jacob Warren, who's on the show, fully lived up to his billing, honestly, coming out of high school.
Yeah, I'll give you the 2 biggest misses in Tennessee recruiting. Now, Cobb is not a complete miss because I think Tennessee would have gotten Cobb had Trooper Taylor not gone to Oklahoma State, because Trooper had made a lot of good progress with him. Now, Tennessee was on the bandwagon late. Kentucky had the lead. He was already committed to Kentucky, but from those that I talked to, Tennessee felt they at least had pulled even and maybe even had the lead. And then they decided to give the offense to Dave Clawson instead of Trooper Taylor. And we all know how that turned out. So Cobb is not a complete miss. The biggest complete miss is Patrick Willis. They didn't offer Patrick Willis.
Yeah.
And he's an NFL Hall of Famer.
And because they wanted Daniel Brooks was their guy, right? And
yes. And Daniel Brooks should be on the list of scariest Vol because he chased a bunch of frat guys up the stairs. And the police report is so funny. When I was trying to read it to Jimmy Himes to give him the news, I started giggling, and he did too, because he chased them up, and as they were trying to unlock their keys and get inside their little frat house, he got to them and threw one off the deck and beat the hell out of the other 2.
That's what I'm talking about. By the way, we got to rest in peace him because he did pass away.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I did not know that.
He had he was kind of getting his life together, and then I think he was in a bad car accident. But yeah, it's you're right. So getting back to it, the biggest reason to believe in Tyreek King is because he's a fringe 4-star. I think because of that, Dave, you could say he's a full out 4-star quality player coming from Knoxville. And by the way, chicken butt, you did say Brandon Warren. I know he comes from East Tennessee, but and I know he ended up being a flame out. I think that's Lane Kiffin's fault more than anybody else. I'll just put that out there. I think Lane Kiffin kind of sabotaged Brandon Warren's future, but I get to. I
gotta say Brandon Warren sabotaged his future.
You think he sabotaged his own future?
Yeah. It to me, it was just like the Jerry Green thing. This was a wake-up call. Well, Brandon Warren would do something wrong, and it was a wake-up call. But the thing is, he kept hitting the snooze button, and he never got up.
But do you think if somebody like Fulmer was there instead of Kiffin, he maybe could have righted the ship a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he might have gotten caught up in that, but Brandon Warren was a very talented player. Richard says Steve Spurrier is the biggest miss, but
that's Johnson City.
Yeah, let's get back to Tyreek King. Tyreek King, told Ryan Callahan, quote, after the Bama game, Coach Pope came up to me and said, that could have been you out there. That could have been you. You could be that guy. And I could see myself doing it. Quote, where Squirrel's position, I could be that guy catching them deep balls, running all types of routes for those guys and hurting my shoulder. No, he didn't say the last part of it, but he could be that guy. And you would think as a slightly smaller receiver, that's what they're looking for. I don't think Jalen Hyatt is going to be the prototype slot receiver for Tennessee. He just happened to be tall, but I think it's speed and quickness that they want more than anything. And Tyreek King could definitely be that.
Yes. And by the way, as we're learning now, nobody was more of a, we talked about him and Hooker. Jalen Hyatt's the biggest system player in the history of Josh Heupel at this point, if you look at the NFL production. And I think you're right. The 5'10", 5'11", speedsters, that's who they really want. And Squirrel White, again, if fully healthy, is a major threat in the offense. Whereas I would say that, and I think Tyreek King sees that and sees that he's banged up right now and sees he could be a much bigger threat if he's healthy. And you're right. I think that's exactly what Tyreek King sees himself becoming at Tennessee. And I think quite honestly, his speed, I think his size is being held against him right now, which I think if you're watching the NFL, and Dave, I wanted to bring this up, Tyreek King is kind of becoming the prototypical and Squirrel White. I think the NFL is getting back to valuing like your undersized receiver that has a lot of speed. I don't know if you're noticing that.
No, I did. And I thought that Tom Brady with the Edelmans, and there was another guy just like him, did that as well. And
not to like bring race in it, but they were white people fast. And then what I mean, they were quick and they could cut real quickly on a route.
Right.
But they weren't going to win. They weren't going to beat the star quarterbacks on a vertical route down the sideline.
No, probably not. And I would add this too. Who's the receiver for the Dolphins? He's not terribly big.
Tyreek Hill.
I mean, he's
also
not
kind of a scary guy if you're a pregnant lady, but you know.
All right, Faison Brandon is the highest rated prospect in Tennessee's 2026 class, a 5-star receiver. Then Tyreek King would be the next highest rated, 3-star according to the composite, 4-star according to some. Then 3-star interior offensive lineman Brandon Anderson out of North Cobb in Kennesaw, Georgia. Carson Sneed is a tight end out of Donaldson Christian Academy. Just a 3-star, but the bottom line is if they feel like you can fit their need, then I'm not questioning that Tennessee needs to go out and get a 5-star tight end. I don't think they necessarily need that in this system. And then Tyson Bacon, defensive lineman out of Hoover, Alabama. So it appears to me that they're winning some battles against Georgia and Alabama, in particular with Tyreek King. And of course, everybody wanted Faison Brandon, as he's one of the highest rated. He is the highest rated quarterback in the nation in the 2026 class. So could this be Josh Heupel's first class that he's actually swinging with the best of them and winning some of those battles, winning punchers battles out in the middle of the ring in recruiting and not having to evaluate early, not having to take guys that are borderline? Could this be his first real class?
I would say 2025 is going to be his first real class. That's where he got the George McIntyres and people like that. That's his real focus. It's 2025. But, 2026 almost seems like an insurance class. I mean, Faison Brandon, Dave, I've got to ask you this honestly. Do you think Faison Brandon will stay in this system? I mean, if George McIntyre ends up being a star, would Faison, he'd be sitting behind Faison for at least, Faison would be sitting on the bench for at least 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's going to shake itself out. Either Merklinger gets the job, McIntyre gets the job, or Faison gets the job. And I don't think anybody in this transfer portal era is going to sit for 2 years. I really don't. This day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our good friend Medicare Misty. Insurance you need, options to choose from, agents you can trust, no charge for her services. Medicare Misty. She is also licensed in over 40 states. So no matter where you're watching, you can take care of Medicare Misty's services at no charge. She charges nothing and helps you with your Medicare. And right now is open enrollment. So this day in Tennessee sports history brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, what do we got, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history?
There's a couple of very famous moments for Tennessee on Halloween. And I don't know which way I want to go, but I'm going to go.
One. Do you want to pick the dumbest one?
I think I know where you're going with the dumbest one, but I think it was
Lane
the
Kiffin,
one.
The jerseys that were sewn
the black
together. I think,
and
on
orange
Saturday
the
morning.
Halloween jerseys on Halloween were beautiful, and Dave is just an old fuddy-duddy. He was like, they're orange and white, and not all that tradition.
No, you just didn't get close to them. When you got close to them, it looked like a middle school jersey, Caleb. I mean, it just looked tacky and thrown together. I listen, I don't care about the jersey. I've told you before, I think, that I have to remind myself sometimes if they wear orange or white at home, they just don't register with me. But I don't care what jerseys they wear. They could wear all pink for all I care. I just thought they looked tacky.
So, Gabe No Bueno has an 8-month-old son. Gabe No Bueno, what happens between the 4th and the 8th month? Does it get easier or harder? Because I'm at 4 right now and I'm struggling. Not that I'm struggling to love my son. I'm saying I'm struggling to sleep. I'm struggling to sleep. I didn't mean to make it sound like that. Okay.
I'm struggling to love my children.
Okay. So
what
what stands out more? That or the T. Martin summoning the all of the dead spirits to have him complete 23 straight passes, despite the fact that he was not an accurate quarterback.
Oh, yeah. So when it got to that point, they were made aware of the record. They threw every screen and everything possible that they could to get T. Martin that record. That was on Halloween? I didn't remember that.
That was on Halloween. And what else was on Halloween?
No.
6 years before that, Tennessee got upset by South Carolina, which got Johnny Majors fired.
I do remember that. Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. PeakIVHydration.com. Coming up on the program, we're going to get back on topic as we talked a little bit of recruiting. Gerald Mincy not playing after taking shots at the Vols in the offseason. Also, Kentucky or Vanderbilt, a bigger rival. 5, I can tell you for Kentucky, they look at Tennessee as their Super Bowl, and we'll get into that. 5 Wildcats to watch for against the Vols, and then Tennessee's college football rooting interest. Our last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. And I'll remind you that the show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Play to win. Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. banksandjones.com.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back to the program. As we're going to dive into Gerald Mincey's comments, and he's not going to play. It's ruled out. So, but he's a former Vol who liked to take shots at Tennessee after he moved on to Kentucky. Do you take a little bit of extra pride in beating those guys? And also the circumstances around Mincey's departure, because Tennessee has had offensive line woes. Could they have used him this season? Arguable. All right, so let's get into that right now. Brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Stop by and tell Bo that Dave and Off the Hook Sports said, "Hey, Bo." All right, here are my thoughts on Mincey. From my understanding, Mincey wasn't necessarily shown the door like Tennessee's defensive backs were last year, where they thought they could definitely upgrade at that position. However, I don't believe that Tennessee went overboard in praising Mincey to try to get him to stay, and they certainly didn't line up more NIL dollars to get him to stay. So it, to me, says a lot about a young man if, and I don't mean this to sound mean, Caleb, but it says a lot about the young man and maybe where he is in life if he has to take a few more bucks to play for Kentucky than he does to play for Tennessee. Addison Nichols was a different situation. He's going to an offensive line coach and a very good offensive line coach, and he was not going to play. So first, your thoughts on Mincey leaving, and what was the shot that he took at Tennessee on his way out the door?
Well, he took a few shots where he said, I can't wait to play Tennessee, and that he gave Vol Nation his all and didn't like the respect and things like that. He said that he said that Kentucky's offense is faster paced than Tennessee's, which I think was an outright lie. Following the NIL stuff, I'm with you, and him following a few more NIL bucks. You're right. It does say a little bit more. And I think one of the sadder things is, I don't know Gerald Mincey's full background, but I know he was a foster kid. So there probably are some struggles there. Let's just be honest. So you could really understand that.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, if we're talking, let's say Gerald Mincey, just for stuffs and giggles, is a $250,000 a year player. Okay. Which I know sounds crazy, but that's about where we are nowadays. To be an elite player gets it into 7 digits. An elite quarterback gets even beyond that. Well, let's say he's a $250,000 a year player. Well, if Kentucky comes to you and says, we'll make you a $500,000 a year player, that's a big difference. I mean,
that is.
Wouldn't most people leave their jobs, even if you didn't like the culture as much, even if you didn't think you could win at a high level? Would Michael Scott go to another paper company for double the money that he knew was not going to ever sell as much paper as Dunder Mifflin? Well, perhaps.
Well, and it's, I've never been in these situations, so I can't talk about short-sightedness or not, but it can be short-sighted. I mean, there was a glaring, obviously, case of someone who, because of their background, made a short-sighted decision. Dave, you know the story. Scottie Pippen asking for a 7-year extension on his rookie contract because he wanted to make sure he could take care of everybody in his corner before, just in case he got hurt. So he took this you know the story, right? Took a horrible 7-year deal worth $18 million. 2 years later, the dream team happens and the NCAA quadruples in popularity. If he had just waited till his free agency, he would have been worth $100 million more than what he got.
Yes. He could have bought a lot more alcohol nowadays.
Not the truth. Yeah. He got a 7-year
Not the truth.
If he got a 7-year $18 million deal, and if he just waits 2 years, he's going to get a 5-year $100 million deal. That's some Greg Sankey negotiation by Scottie Pippen. Yeah, I just threw a shot at Greg Sankey. Anyways, I would say with Gerald Mincey following the NIL, I think it was somewhat short-sighted. I think he was sold a fake bag of goods with Bush Hamden and the new spread offense. I think he got shocked at some people from Tennessee taking shots at him leaving, because in this day in football and in every day in football, people and fans will take shots at you leaving if you were starting for a team. I don't think he's handled it well. And so 2 weeks ago, after all the shots he took at Tennessee in the offseason, he started taking shots at the players that were his teammates. And he retweeted a Rocky Top Insider post on the PFF grades of Tennessee's offensive line against Florida. Spoiler alert, as you know, Dave, they weren't good. I mean, and they called him out individually, the players. And obviously Lance Hurd had a 38.3. But they had Cooper Mays, Dane Davis, Jackson Lampley, John Campbell, Andre Carrick, Javonte Spraggins, and Lance Hurd had all their grades. Now, the question is, and I want to ask you this, do you think he was taking a shot at the whole offensive line without me, or was that a direct shot at Lance Hurd specifically, since they might have actually offered Lance Hurd more money than Gerald Mincey, and that upset Gerald Mincey? It seems like Gerald Mincey's upset about that.
Yeah, that could be it. In this day and age of transfer portal, do you take more pride in beating a player who transfers from your school? Yes, hammer them. No, all good. And according to this, Pippen's son plays for the Grizzlies.
He does.
Did you know that? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, he does.
That's cool. Because Michael Jordan's son's dating his mom.
And also snorting cocaine on the side whenever he's like, whatever y'all think about the Michael versus LeBron debate, I think it's objectively true that LeBron won in the parenting field. Like, even if you don't think Bronny
he won in the person field too.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, he paid for like what, 4,500 or 15,000 or something kids to go to school with his foundation.
Yes. And he actually was involved in his kids' lives, unlike Michael Jordan. So that there's
well,
that.
Not all of them. There's one in Knoxville that he wasn't a big part of. All right, but
no, that's what I mean. No. LeBron was involved in his kids' lives. Michael Jordan was not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, the kid was properly funded. For those that don't know, look it up. All right, so go ahead. Go back to your point.
Yeah. We're going way off topic here, but talking about Joe Mincey himself, he's not playing on Saturday against against Tennessee. I just wonder, like, does him not playing, are you happier if you're Tennessee because you think Gerald Mincey clearly wants to show a little extra or are you more upset because you want to humiliate him?
Well, I asked on our poll question, I asked that question, and not surprisingly, it's yes, hammer them. Do you take more pride in being a player who transfers from your school? Yes, hammer them. No, all good.
That's not the same thing, though. Do you think because we just watched Arkansas and Tennessee wanted to hammer the transfers. Guess what? The transfers got the best of them. Addison Nichols actually played pretty well in that game, and Danico Slaughter played well too. So my question to you is, would you rather, if you're Tennessee, do you wish Gerald, how about this? James Pierce, who would have gone up against Gerald Mincey. Do you wish Gerald Mincey was playing so you could humiliate him? Or are you happier he's not playing because he may have actually put on played a lot better than who else you're going against.
I thought you were going to say put on a little weight. I think you would take a lot more pride in hammering him and beating him. I think you'd rather him be out there, and he was the starter. So yes, you're correct. He would be a better player, but you would rather him be out there. And let's be honest. I mean, Tennessee, and they're fine in the interior of the offensive line. Now, as soon as I say that, somebody will get hurt. But with Spraggins, Coop, and Andre Keurig, you're good. And Mincy never had the feet to play tackle. So it's not like he could have helped the Vols play tackle, Caleb. So that's just kind of where Tennessee is right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look,
I mean, would he, let me ask you this. Would he have part one started, part two been an option at tackle when everybody seemingly got hurt in Norman, Oklahoma?
Yes, he would have been an option at tackle. I mean, again, Gerald Mincy, for those who don't remember, in 2022, he and Jeremiah Crawford split reps at left tackle. Remember that, Dave? And Darnell Wright just locked down the right tackle side.
Yes.
Splitting reps at left tackle, you got to give Gerald Mincy credit. They protected Hendon Hooker well. Now, I think from my eyes, and you know more than me on this type of stuff, but it seemed like Jeremiah Crawford was always in on the important drives, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I don't think this offense is all that difficult to play tackle, which is why I've been surprised by Hurd. I think it's just make sure and direct the pass rush outside. Just don't get beat inside.
Which is literally what Lance Hurd's been unable to avoid doing.
Yeah, through the first quarter of the Alabama game, he was continually getting beat inside, and I think it affected Nico's confidence. So I don't know that he would have been a factor. I really, as a matter of fact, don't think that he would have been. But maybe it's another body they could have run out there at tackle. But I think they wanted an upgrade at that position. And I think they saw Hurd as being that upgrade. And it was as simple as, do you want this Knapheide work body truck, or do you want another one? One may be more expensive, but they'll take care of you at Work Trucks. All about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an Knapheide work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, anything special like cranes or dump trucks, Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, Work Trucks. The entire inventory is right there online. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. WorkTrucksLLC.com. WorkTrucksLLC.com. They'll find the perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. So I wrote one time in a college exam, or what do they call those things? A paper? I mean, what do you write in college? They got a fancier name, but it's a research paper, essentially. And I wrote that some of the appeal of sports is and I wrote this at the time where Deion Sanders was bouncing back and forth from the Niners to the Cowboys and all that good stuff. So I wrote part of it is the soap opera. So I think I wrote masculine soap opera. Is this an added aspect that we didn't expect that is actually very good for the sport? That you have these storylines that, hey, Addison Nichols once played at Tennessee, and if Tennessee ever plays Lance Hurd, LSU, you can go the Lance Hurd route. I mean, what are your thoughts? Is this a good thing for the sport? Because I think it just generates more and more interest.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for the sport. I love it for the sport. Now, from the other side, you're going to hear a lot of this in the near future, which is that there's going to be one of the things that people don't like about the NFL that they always loved about college is the loyalty factor. They felt it was easier you fell in love with players more, it felt like, in college because they were committed to the college. But quite honestly, guys, I'm going to be honest with y'all. The love wasn't always reciprocated because the players, a lot of times while they gave their all for the university, there were players who may have performed well, but they were trapped in, as you talk about, Dave, and what should have been an illegal contract. Wouldn't you rather see players who willingly choose to play for you over 3 or 4 years because they want to play for you, and then you can really fall in love with those guys? Most of the players on these teams, I'm just going to tell y'all, even before NIL, most of them already were mercenaries. Yes, there was Al Wilson and John Henderson and Eric Berry who and Peyton Manning were just superb people that, Dave really wanted to win where they were at. But most of these players were thinking about they were going to do they gave their all for Tennessee. I'm not taking that away from them, but they also were focusing on what was best for their future. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah, I go with that. I'm going to go a little bit. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and isn't it better if in the NIL age, the guys that do stay, that they really do love Tennessee even more, don't you? Or wherever school you're a fan of.
Yes, agreed. So, so far the finalist, as it is Halloween, who's the scariest Vol? As just the mere mention of some of these names have me going. And right now, the finalists that we have are Al Wilson and Jansen Jackson. Okay. All right. So we got 2 more up there, and I'm going by the poll question. I'm not telling you who it is, but it's Hacksaw Reynolds and Doug Atkins. I can tell you that Doug Atkins, in a phone interview that I did with him, was intimidating over the phone. Aside from the fact that it was the most un-PC interview that I've ever done in my life, and I had to edit it for 40 minutes to take out everything that you could possibly imagine would get you canceled nowadays, Caleb. But his intensity, and you've got to remember what he used to do when the Bears played at Wrigley Field. Do you know what he did before the games to relax his nerves?
What did he do?
He'd shoot pigeons with his rifle out in the stands.
I love that.
That's pretty damn scary. Okay. Now, Hacksaw Reynolds, though, what game made him so mad that he came back to Tennessee and sawed a car in half?
I actually don't know. I don't know this one, and I know a lot of stories, but
you've never heard the Hacksaw? So he was. it may have been the Ole Miss loss. But he was so mad, the Archie.
Yeah, when his fellow linebacker would not shut up in Steve Kiner.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, Hacksaw Reynolds, as legend has it, came back and sawed a car in half. That's a guy that's not really on par with most sane people. That's pretty scary. But I would say Doug Atkins, and he right now has about 2/3 of the vote. So,
well, I mean, he was.
Yes.
There's debates on who was more important to that 51 team, because Doug Atkins is more famous, but Hank Larcella was also on that team, and Bert Reshashar, the 51 team that won the national title. But yeah, Hacksaw Reynolds, that was the golden age of Tennessee linebackers, man. I mean, before the Al Wilson era, you had Hacksaw Reynolds, Steve Kiner. You later had Jackie Walker. I mean, you just had a run of legendary linebackers. Andy Spiva in the 70s, by the way, who still has the all-time record for tackles because the SEC recorded tackles differently during that time.
By the way, Derek's on a roll with one-liners. No need for the jaws of life. We've got Mr. Reynolds over here.
You got Hacksaw.
Yeah, that to me is, I mean, you have to be mad for a long amount of time, because I've never tried to hacksaw a car in half, but I imagine that it is a hefty chore.
I also imagine, what type of privilege do you have where you can afford to go hacksaw a car in half and be like, I want to be okay? Most of us living, trying to scrape by, trying to, just live and make an honest living for us and our families. We don't have the luxury of sawing a car in half. Okay. We're going to get screwed at that point.
Well, yeah, true. But it wasn't necessarily his car. Yeah, it could have been somebody else's car. Okay,
so that's just a wonderful thing for him to do. Such a classy guy. Let me go screw up somebody else's car who may be making an honest living.
All right, I love it. All right, so Doug Atkins right now has 2/3 of the vote over Hacksaw Reynolds. So our finalist we'll come up with another semifinalist round on Scariest Ball on Halloween. And we will continue with that. But right now, our finalists are Al Wilson, Doug Atkins, and Jansen Jackson for a variety of reasons. Now, I want you to come up, Caleb, with, and if you'll do me this favor, I'd greatly appreciate it. I want you to come up with the balls that we could put alongside Reggie White. These are purely players. Reggie White, I met him in an airport. He's not a scary guy. I mean, he's a big dude, but he was, how are you? You know, he had that raspy voice, and he was a totally nice guy, running late for a plane, but took time to talk to us. I was with Meadowlark Lemon's son. Strange story. But he was scary on the field. So maybe Eric Berry needs to be back in that one. Maybe we give Eric Berry another opportunity, or anybody else that wants to go ahead and throw up there who we should include. We would greatly appreciate it. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
4 downs today brought to you by our friends at Double D Piping, fire suppression at its best. Caleb, Calhoun, who are those balls that we need to watch for? And first, Coop, what should people do that want to be a part of the program? Oh, they shouldn't do that. That would be Law and Order. Let's try this.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
What down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
All right, Caleb, what do you got?
Well, as we talk about the 5 Kentucky Wildcats to watch for against Tennessee, there's a big advantage Tennessee has this weekend, which, again, should really help Lance Hurd, which is the fact that J.J. Weaver, their star edge rusher, is out on Saturday. And so if Lance Hurd struggles on Saturday, then he should just give back all of his NIL money and go home and never play football again.
Back it up. Just like get direct, go to the Kentucky sideline, say you got room for another because I want to join Gerald Mincy.
Except Gerald Mincy actually will have had some performances of success in his back
in all fairness, Hurd was pretty good in the second, third, and fourth quarter against Alabama. I watched him closely.
He was really good. He tried really hard.
That's exactly how I sound. All right, go ahead. Who's what down is next? Somehow we got to fit 5 into 4, so I don't know.
Yes, no. Don't worry. We're going to be fine. Don't worry. Okay. Without JJ Weaver, we have to look at Alex Afari. Alex Afari Jr. to be exact. He is the weak side linebacker, who's more of a coverage linebacker, but still makes quite a few plays for the year so far. We're looking at a guy who has 1.5 sacks, but he actually has 8 tackles for a loss. So he actually leads the team in tackles for a loss this year. So I think Tennessee's got to be very careful watching out for him. He, again, he's more of a coverage linebacker, but he's going to make a lot of plays in the run game, and Tennessee's going to need to run the ball. So Alex Afari, and sticking with first down together, because that's what we have to do, because that's Dave's rule for me, since I do 5 and he wants 4.
Absolutely can't do 4. You just refuse to do 4.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I just
okay, go ahead.
We're gonna go look at their one of their underrated offensive playmakers, which is going to be Dane Key. Dane Key has 39 catches for 587 yards and 2 touchdowns. They're going to look to get him the ball as much as possible. Everybody talks about Barian Brown, obviously, but I think Barian Brown's been banged up. Dane Key is their star receiver again, and so Jamal McCoy is going to be on him. The reason he's less of a factor is because I just don't think Kentucky's going to be able to get him the ball. Sorry.
Okay. You're just counting, Barry, what Brown can do for you. If anybody remembers the UPS commercials, is he going to be on the list?
No, he's not.
I told that joke on TV yesterday. I had about the same reaction.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, second down.
Second down. All right. So sticking with offensive weapons, more of an all-purpose player. The primary rusher they should be scared of. Demi Sumo. He is not a sumo wrestler, but
and he will not wear a diaper during the game.
Well, you don't know that. I mean, you're not.
I don't.
There was a Florida
the white. Okay, by the way, does anybody remember the white pants that Tennessee had in the mid to early 90s that were completely see-through? It was very awkward.
I did not know they were see-through.
It was very, very awkward. And
who remembers?
It wasn't as see-through for a Caucasian player, but it was more see-through.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it was rough. Go ahead, Kayla. I mean, seeing a guy in his stance from behind with see-through pants is not something you want to see.
Well, in 2015, do you remember Adam Lean at Florida soiling himself while running for a touchdown? It became very noticeable, and he had to go change, get cleaned up in the locker room.
Okay, all right. What Brown can do for you? Who's next?
Sorry. Okay, so Davey Stewart, just to give him some credit real quick, he has 419 rushing yards on the year, and he has 108 receiving yards, 4 total touchdowns. Tennessee will have to keep an eye on him throughout the game. He's their other offensive weapon. I'm naming offensive weapons by default because there are some offensive weapons. But Dave, like I'm going to be honest, I don't see Kentucky crossing midfield on Saturday.
You don't see Kentucky crossing midfield at all?
I think that should be Tennessee's goal. Y'all remember Coach Yossi? Remember the Titans? I don't want them to gain another yard. And he said if they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm gonna take every last one of you out. I think they should do that in this game. I think Tim Banks should literally be like, if they cross the line of scrimmage, you're all coming out. They're not allowed to cross the line of scrimmage. That should be Tennessee's goal in this game.
Okay. All right. We'll see if that's a goal. Where are we now? Second down?
No, third down.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
I literally said third down.
Third down.
Go ahead.
Guys, Dave's high, okay?
No, I'm not. I just didn't get much sleep.
Okay, so with JJ Weaver out, I'm actually going with a backup defensive end who's been a more productive defensive end because I think Kentucky's going to run a more 4-down line set at different times. And that is going to mean more reps for Octavius Oxendine, who is leading not leading the team. He is second on the team in sacks this year with 3, has 3.5 tackles for loss, only has 10 total tackles, Dave, because he only plays sparingly, but he only plays sparingly. He still has 3 sacks and 3.5 tackles for loss. So okay. I think Tennessee's got to be very careful with him. He'll probably be opposite, lining up John Campbell Jr., but they may move him to Lance Hurd, but both Campbell and Hurd will be tested by him.
There's just no question that Brown is going to have a return for a touchdown now that you haven't included him on your list.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right.
The most important player on the team for Kentucky, the one that everybody needs to watch out for, is JQ Hardaway. Jonquise Hardaway, to be exact. He is their feature cornerback. He's their main cornerback. Look, Tennessee's going to try some stuff with Nico, and Hardaway already has 2 interceptions on the year. He has a forced fumble. He really is, you could call him a shutdown corner on his own. By the way, by default, Jamin Dumas-Johnson also does belong on this list with 6 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks. He's an honorable mention. But for me, he's the middle linebacker for Kentucky. I just went with Alex Safari for the weak side linebacker for this one, but you could say either one of them, but JQ Hardaway is their most important player. He's going to be the one that they're going to hope takes away one side of the field. And if Tennessee's passing attack is not what it needs to be, then he could have it. He could be the reason.
First down coming up, brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right, Caleb.
That was 4th down. That was literally 4th down.
Okay, so we just got 4th down in. All right, so there we go. 4 downs. I think you're leaving out. Brown. I think that's short-sighted.
See, my debates with myself are Jamin Dumas Johnson and Barry and Brown. But I'm going more. They've been using Demi Sumo a lot more than Barry and Brown in this game, and so on the season. And Barry and Brown's been more in the passing game anyway. And in the passing game, Dane Key is the key guy. Now, if Gavin wins
5 returns for a touchdown.
Yeah.
One was a 99-yarder this year. You don't give him anything for that.
He has one return for a touchdown, by the way.
This year, but he had like 4. He's had like 4 others in his career, I believe.
But I just don't. Tennessee. The reason that's not a factor to me is because Josh Tuberville's great on kickoffs. Every single kickoff for Josh Tuberville this year is sailed into the end zone. When is he going to get a chance to run it back?
Well, everyone hasn't sailed out of the back of the end zone. They've sailed off the field of play, but they haven't.
That's what I mean. Like, they're not going to give him a chance to return at all.
Well, that doesn't mean Josh needs to kick it straight out of bounds.
I mean, honestly, Dave, I was probably sitting in the press box with you and we didn't know each other at the time, but do you remember that 2007 Tennessee-Arkansas game where Arkansas with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones went to Knoxville and Tennessee beat them? They shut down that offense because John Chavis, and like a rare stroke of genius for him, decided not to blitz that day and kept his linebackers in spy, which was Gerard Mayo did an amazing job staying at home. Well, I will never forget, Tennessee scored on the opening drive, and I was sitting next to a fellow editor at the Beacon at the time, and I said, I think they should kick it out of bounds. Just spot on the ball on the 40 every single time. And the guy who was next to me said, you might be right. They don't kick it out of bounds. Felix Jones runs it into field goal range.
All right, so I can remember one Chavis moment where I was sitting next to, let's just say this young man may have been not all there, and he liked to say 3rd down and Chavis like every time it was 3rd down, and I beat him to the punch because I'd sat next to him for 3 or 4 games, and he just started having like a little bit of a freak out that I'd beaten him to the punch on his joke that he had told 58 times that season. That would have been funny enough if it wasn't for the fact that Roy Kramer was sitting on the other side of him and asked to be moved from his seat because the guy was just so neurotic about the fact somebody beat him to his favorite joke. Roy Kramer's like, I'd like to
really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to move, Caleb. I mean, I thought he was getting angry. All right. New poll question before we get to the final one. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah. We have the I would rather do the following. Score and soil myself, just not score.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Okay, so
wait. Here's a real question. All right, guys.
No, that's a real question.
We should set a bet. We should set a bet for our fans. What's more likely on Saturday? A Kentucky offensive player scores a touchdown or he soils himself?
Okay, no, it's not that. All right, so what for but what are the what's the results? Actually, do we want to tease this forward? Yeah, we do. TristarHatsCo.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. The world wants to know. By the way, I ordered some new shirts from our friends at Apex Apparel, and they're going to be awesome.
TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TristarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
All right, let's get to the stat of the day, Caleb. And then is Tennessee better off with Mark Stoops as its head coach heading into the future? Because it seems like Stoops can't beat Tennessee for the most part, and it seems like he's an average coach at best. But first, give us an update on the bowl question.
Would you rather score and soil yourself or just
Like
not
the
score? You want me
Florida
to give you the
player.
result? Do you want me to give you the results yet?
Yes, I want you. Yeah.
60% say score and soil myself. Now, here's the question. What if score refers to taking a lady home?
No,
Would you rather
no.
Would you rather soil yourself in the
Oh.
middle of scoring?
No, that would be awful. All right, so what's our...
Yeah, you still scored.
Yeah, what's our... Well, yeah, you still scored. What's your stat of the day? Brought to you by our friends at Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. They help me fix my credit. Chat Mortgage with 2 T's, chatmortgage.com. Also, we'll visit with Cooper Mays later today, I believe. That's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters, cityheatandair.com. Caleb Calhoun, what have you got, sir, as far as our stat of the day? I want to get to that right now. What do you got?
All right, so I told you guys last week that Tennessee has not allowed a team to has held every opponent, their first 7 opponents, under 20 points, and that was the first time since 1969 that they had done that. Okay, I'm going to add another layer to this. Okay,
Scared.
In the BCS era, only 4 other SEC teams have accomplished this feat. Only 4 in the BCS era. So dating back to 1998. Guess who they are?
I'm ready.
2003 LSU, 2011 Alabama, 2012 Alabama, 2021 Georgia. Hey, Dave, what do those 4 schools have in common?
I don't know. What do they have in common?
They all won the Natty.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 of them were Nick Saban teams. 2003 LSU, 2011 Alabama, and 2012 Alabama. And then 2021 Georgia.
Topic for tomorrow. Is this team better suited heading into November to win a national championship than the 2022 team? You didn't know Hendon Hooker was hurt yet. You didn't know Connor Stallions was stealing signals and giving them to South Carolina, which I do believe was a thing. And lastly, we're only going to take 1, but we've got our finalists for Scariest Ball: Al Wilson, Jansen Jackson, and Doug Adkins. So we're only going to take 1 more, or I'm going to include Brent Schaefer with the baseball.
Well, wait, let's do another poll real quick of a couple of other guys, and then whoever wins that, and then we can do a final 4, because I got a couple of others for this list.
Okay. Well, I kind of wanted my last poll question about soiling yourself to stew for a while, but we can go ahead and move on. All right.
So I'll set it up, because I got the guys that could still be scary. That they were scary with their play on the field, but they weren't notorious like beat the hell out of you off the field. Does that make sense?
Yep. Coming up, Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. You want this game to be close so that Mark Stoops stays around. It might hurt Tennessee's college football playoff chances, but you can still beat Georgia. But this game needs to stay close, because Mark Stoops is as valuable of all as you will find coaching for another team. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Derek, take that post down.
Okay, stop. I don't want to think about that. Oh, I'm now squeamish. All right, I'm going straight to it.
Now in its 45th year, the 2nd and 3rd generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
We answer the hard-hitting questions. And there's no doubt about that. It's on the screen right now. If you had to dive at a ball carrier who had soiled himself, could you make the play? Caleb, is it okay? And I mean this sincerely, and you can tell me. Is it okay to tell a story about a former Vol who I'm not going to name because he's passed away and he was a really good friend of mine, but he thought it was funny too. But it has to do with our, for whatever reason, our topic at hand, Peyton.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Okay, so do you want me to tell it?
Let's go ahead and tell it.
Okay, so do you remember, this may be before your time, I'm sure a lot of our listeners do, that a lot of NFL teams would hold exhibition games like at Neyland Stadium to spread the sport. And like I remember Pittsburgh and the Eagles played in Neyland Stadium. Y'all remember that? And this was pretty common. And I think they would do about 2 of those games a year or maybe just 1 a year. But nevertheless, it was pretty common. So one of the days in the 80s, they're spreading the word. Turned out to spread a lot more than that. And they're spreading the word. My understanding, it was in Central Park. They set up a football field in New York City, and they did a little scrimmage sort of thing. And it's hard to imagine as big as the NFL is now, right, that they would even think to do those things. But I also saw Larry Bird and Michael Jordan when they were growing the sport in Thompson-Boling Arena. So it was a thing. All right, so at halftime, they didn't have locker rooms, and one of the players, had to go boom, boom. So he goes to the outside, the disposable toilets, or what are they called? The portable toilets.
Mm-hmm.
And his former Tennessee teammate, who was on the other team, got all of his guys together. I'm not even going to tell you who they played for because you can figure it out. And they took the entire porta potty and turned it upside down.
That's such a asshole move.
They turned it down on him. So he had, dew on him. So he, point is, he was the best offensive lineman in the second half because nobody wanted to get anywhere near him.
Oh, I believe that. I mean, have you heard what Clyde Drexler said about why many people didn't want to guard Magic Johnson on the 92 Dream Team?
No, I just don't even want to know. Okay. All right. So here we go. That's enough potty day humor. All right.
Okay. Now, also, before we get started, I just want to set this is the final round of Scary Vols. Okay.
Okay.
And now I'm just saying great players who were physically gifted but didn't have any like mean streak in them that we know of. But which of these is the scariest, Dave? Reggie White, Leonard Little, Sean Ellis, or Kosi Coleman?
I'll be honest with you. Kosi Coleman always scared me, and he was like the nicest dude ever.
But if he wanted to fight, he could have just beat the hell
Oh,
out of anybody,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
but,
is he a Hall of Famer?
In the NFL, no. Kosi Coleman was a great starter for quite a few years, and I think he won a Super Bowl, but his career got cut short by injury.
Okay. So out of that group, I'm not going to include Leonard Little because
I mean, with Sean Ellis, I just got to run. He's not catching me.
Yeah. Okay, so who are you taking out of that group?
I'm taking Leonard Little because he's so physically gifted. Like Leonard Little, if Leonard Little puts on a Michael Myers mask and is a slasher and is trying to kill you, you're not getting away from him.
Okay. It's Reggie White because those are just pure football players you're talking about. So
yeah, but Reggie White, I think I could outrun Reggie White. I couldn't outrun Leonard Little.
You couldn't outrun Reggie White in a car.
Was Reggie White that freakishly fast?
He wasn't freakishly slow, which I'd say you are. All right, so let's
what do you know about that, Dave?
Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Tennessee needs to keep this game close to keep Mark Stoops in the SEC. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. So, Caleb, we've argued earlier that Tennessee needs to win it big to help with their college football playoff potential bid that's out there, but I'll take it a step further. They don't want to win too big because Mark Stoops' seat is really, really hot. Maybe hotter than Shane Beamer's. I would say equally as hot as Brent Venables, from what I'm hearing my sources in Kentucky. So I'll say bank on it. Mark Stoops is good for the Vols. You agree or disagree, Caleb?
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right. In honor of Halloween, I've changed my name to Boo Carter. Boo. All right. So it's down there. You can see it right there, Caleb. All right. So Mark Stoops is good for the Vols at Kentucky. Yay or nay?
Nay, because if you know Kentucky's history, they could be significantly, the chances are if they didn't have Mark Stoops, they'd be significantly worse and easier to beat. I mean, right now, Tennessee still has to look. Let's go through history for a minute, Dave. For most of history, Tennessee didn't even have to prepare for Kentucky. As you pointed out aptly plenty of times, Philip Fulmer spent the week recruiting ahead of Kentucky.
Okay, now here's my retort to that. That is true. However, I think with the transfer portal and the money that could be there as they get a little bit more serious about football. And listen, everybody's going to have to get more serious about football because if you don't, you're not going to be in the mega conference. So I think that actually if they went out and hired a better coach, which they could do now that they're not giving Calipari all that money, I think they could be a solid football program. When I say solid, I'm talking about what Vanderbilt is doing this year. I don't even think they can be as good as South Carolina because of the lack of in-state talent. There are literally like 5 legit SEC players in Kentucky a year. So I think they could do better if they got serious about it. Right now, you have a guy that's going to win 8 or 9 games at best, never scare you offensively, and do it the old-fashioned way. And I hate to tell you, but Josh Heupel's a little bit more innovative than that.
Okay, here's my problem with what you're saying. You're ignoring history in a huge way, and you're ignoring who's at Kentucky right now. Part of this is the incompetence of an administration. He's the longest-serving athletic director, and I feel like Mitch Barnhart has gotten dumber with age at Kentucky, if I'm just being honest. We're talking about the guy who gave John Calipari a lifetime contract for one national championship at the most storied basketball program in college in the history of the sport.
But did you have a problem with that at the time?
Yes.
I mean, because I didn't, because I thought Calipari was a free throw miss away from winning another championship. So then you're talking at Memphis. So then you're talking about 2 championships for a coach that prides itself on being a blue blood. I thought he would win 2 or 3 more.
Yes, but he lost them because of his miserable on-court coaching. That Memphis game you talked about, that's some of the worst last 2-minute coaching I've ever seen.
Oh,
Kentucky,
agree.
when they played Wisconsin in the Final Four in 2015, and he had Karl Anthony Towns in an undefeated team, and Bo Ryan coached circles around him, giving the ball to Frank Kaminsky, and Calipari's like, I didn't know I should have given the ball to Karl Anthony Towns to try to counter that.
Yeah, but I'll say this. I think you know what you're getting with him, with Calipari. You were going to get a team that's going to try to out-talent you. I think what you're getting with Mark Stoops, to get back to the question, is you know what you're getting. I don't see him ever going out. I mean, Brent Venables is not going to survive at Oklahoma. That's just, we said that before the season. I don't care that they played okay at the beginning of the year. It's not going to happen. He at least went out and got an offensive coordinator that he thought could handle things. And he changed mid-flow, which means he's aggressive. He's trying to fix things. I don't think that Mark Stoops is the type of coach that's going to go out and try to fix things.
Because Kentucky doesn't want him to fix anything. They're content with what he does for the most part until this year. And Dave, what I'm trying to tell you is, here's what you're saying. If Tennessee keeps it close against Kentucky, let's talk about what you said. That puts their college football playoff hopes in jeopardy. You are suggesting they put their college football playoff hopes for this year in jeopardy on the off chance that if they don't, Kentucky could upgrade their coach next year, which most likely will not happen. Because for that to happen, 1, they'd have to move on from Mark Stoops. And 2, you would have to trust Mitch Barnhart to be smart. There's no evidence of that. He just hired Mark Pope for basketball, okay? So the guy doesn't know what he's doing when he hires coaches now. And 3, you have to assume that there would be a pool of good coaches who would want to take the Kentucky job. The good coaches are going to look at other jobs. Dave, Florida's about to become open. UCF, I'll give you this. UCF or Kentucky, which job you taking?
I would take Kentucky to be in the SEC.
No, you wouldn't. You would take UCF in a heartbeat. I get what you're saying with the SEC, but UCF is locked into a Power 3 conference because they joined the Big 12, and the recruiting is better at UCF. You would take UCF. You don't just take a school because they're in the SEC. You don't take Kentucky, Vanderbilt, or Mississippi State. Them being in the SEC makes them bad jobs because they recruit like American Athletic Conference schools, but they're stuck against ACC competition.
Okay, but Mark Stoops is going to be considered for the Oklahoma job, which is now in the SEC. But if you prove that you can win 8 games at Kentucky, you're a pretty high commodity.
Hence the reason you shouldn't want to keep Mark Stoops at Kentucky. You should be happy if he's gone because Kentucky can't replicate him. Mark Stoops does as good of a job as, can you agree with me on this? Mark Stoops has maxed out what's possible at Kentucky.
No.
Oh,
I don't agree with that. Not because of NIL. Not because of NIL. I think every program in the nation almost should be looking at its head coach and saying, could we do better now that we have more money?
You think, okay, I'm just going to disagree with you on that because I think that Kentucky still is going to be limited on what they can do. I think that, and also again, I think here's what I'm putting my faith in. I think Mitch Barnhart would make a really dumb hire. That's where I'm at. I think he'd make a really stupid hire that we'd all be like, what? And
a little hard on Mitch Barnhart. I mean, he did hire Mark Stoops and has made Kentucky football respectable. You and I disagree on Calipari, but he did go out and get Calipari too.
Well, but here's the problem. Mitch Barnhart, and I'm just going to bring this up. He is tied to, he's kind of skated by it since, but back in April, his name was tied to a serious Title IX lawsuit against the university based on knowledge of a swimming coach having an inappropriate relationship with a player, which, by the way, you can call it what it is, that's being a sexual predator. If you're a coach and you're having a relationship with a player, you're a predator at that point. Sorry, end of the story. Sounds like reports are he was aware of it and was complicit in it. There's going to be scandal. The investigation, my understanding, is still going on. There could be scandal wrapping him around throughout the hiring process, and people will want to stay away from that. I think that I don't think Mitch Barnhart would upgrade over Mark Stoops. I think the likelihood is he would get worse. But either way, Dave, you are sitting here and saying Tennessee should sacrifice its college football playoff hopes this year, just on the off chance that Kentucky upgrades at coaching next year.
No, I think there's a perfect number. I think they beat the spread. I think they win by 17. You keep Stoops around and you get a respectable win over the Wildcats. That's where I would be on that. All right. So want to remind you that Joe Neubert Collision Center for over 50 years. Neubert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work. Fantastic customer service. Also, would you like increased recruiting coverage? Would you like more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun? Well, you can do that thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures. You can also win this helmet, this Dylan Sampson autographed helmet that we'll be giving away tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that, giving that away. And all you have to do is be a paid member of Hooker's Corner, just $9.98 a month. Increase recruiting coverage. And also, like I mentioned, you will get an opportunity to win that Dylan Sampson helmet. And we have monthly grand prizes we'll be giving away. I'd say this might be something along the lines of John Henderson, actually, since I know Sports Treasures is having a big signing with him soon. So Sports Treasures, over 35 years in North Knoxville, over 5 million Sports Treasures. They are phenomenal. Also, if you're a member of Hooker's Corner, I'll put that QR code back up there. You can be registered for Rick Terry's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge. We'll give away a Garmin once we top 8,000 subscribers, which should be just about any day now. So be sure, and all you have to do is be a subscriber to this and a member of Hooker's Corner, just $9.98. Caleb Calhoun, last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Where are we going? College football rooting interest. You're going to tell me to root for Alabama and Florida, aren't you?
Well, luckily for you, Alabama doesn't play this week. So I'm going to talk about who you have to root for each game. Yes. And I separated rooting interest by 5 different tiers. Okay. The tiers are this. One tier is based on who you would not want to see if you reach the college football playoff. Like it's not whether or not you go, it's you just don't want to play this team if you get to the college football playoff. That's one tier. Okay.
Okay.
Another tier is games that you're not sure they would help you or hurt you yet because other things have to happen, but they likely would help you. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Another tier is games that it's not about who's a threat to you in the college football playoff. They just help your schedule strength. That the second tier is upsets that you root for, but they're not likely and they're not plausible, but they would help you. And then tier 1 are plausible, likely upsets that could happen that would help, plausible, likely outcomes that could happen that you want that could help your playoff chances. Do those tiers make sense?
A little. It's complicated. Which tier is pure hate for that team? That's what Smoky Mountain Red says.
That's not a college football playoff rooting interest. And if you think like that, you're a loser. Boom. Boom. I said it. Okay, now let's get to
Red's going to take you out back behind the woodshed. All right, go ahead.
By the way, as we start this, we've started our final Scariest Vol Challenge, final round, and it's Al Wilson, Jansen Jackson, Doug Atkins, and Reggie White. Who are you most scared of? Right. So let's get going. So starting with tier 5, these are teams that you just don't want to see them in the college football playoff if you get there. It's not that they'll affect you. And there's 2 games.
Georgia would be on there every week.
But yes, exactly. But Georgia's on a different tier, and I'll get there. But tier 5 is it's only group of 5 relative competition, which is this. You don't want to see Army or Navy in the college football playoff if you're Tennessee. That you don't want to touch those teams. You want them eliminated as much as possible because they could give you hell. So Navy doesn't play this week, but root for Air Force over Army. You want Air Force to beat Army because Air Force ain't going to the playoff. And you want Boise State to beat San Diego State because to make sure Army and Navy don't get in as the group of 5 team, you want Boise State to keep winning. So
I don't root against the service academies. I think that's wrong. And I bet you're the type of guy who doesn't even vote. Go ahead.
Dave thinks I hate the troops. Dave's about to be like, Caleb hates the troops.
Yeah.
Do you hate the troops? Wait. But do you love the troops or do you love Tennessee more? If you're a true Vol fan, you should prioritize the Vols over the troops.
Okay, guys, Yeah, we'll see what happens when China comes attacking. All right, what do
All
you
right,
got?
so next one, tier 4. These are ones that I think you want them to go this way if you're a Tennessee fan, but it could work against you the other way. So tier 4 is this. Pittsburgh plays SMU this weekend. Pittsburgh's undefeated and SMU has 1 loss. I think you root for Pittsburgh over SMU to knock out SMU because Pittsburgh does play Clemson down the road and SMU could actually win out if they play this weekend. I think Pittsburgh will lose to Clemson and they could get upset again. I think they might be a fraudulent undefeated team, but because of that, you want Pittsburgh to beat SMU, but it could go the other way. Another one is Duke over Miami. Again, that's based on the idea that Duke will lose another game the rest of the year because they do have 2 losses. But you want Duke to beat Miami because then Miami and Clemson both have 1 loss, and that raises the possibility that the loser of the ACC title game does not get an at-large bid to the tournament. You want to eliminate multiple bids from conferences if you can.
Okay, what tier's next? Because this is more complicated than my LASIK surgery.
All right, tier 3.
By the way, is why I'm not wearing contacts or glasses.
Tier 3. This is to help Tennessee schedule strength. You want Oklahoma to beat Maine. You want UTEP to beat MTSU. You want Mississippi State to beat UMass. You want NC State to beat Stanford. And you want Vanderbilt to beat Auburn because you want your schedule strength to be beefed
Who's
up.
Kent State playing?
They don't play this weekend, funny enough.
Yeah.
So
I think you just want them to disband and pretend that never happened.
Exactly.
Tier 2 coming
Tier
up.
2.
Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at ccteyes.com. Simply the best.
Tier 2 on this Halloween.
These are unlikely upsets, but if they happen, they would really help Tennessee. Texas Tech and Iowa State. You want Texas Tech to beat Iowa State. Iowa State's undefeated. You want to get that Big 12, whittle that down a little bit. Houston over Kansas State. You'd love to see Louisville beat Clemson. You would love to see Minnesota beat Illinois. And for purpose, this actually doesn't affect you schedule strength or play, but it does affect you playoff wise and also your SEC standings. You want Florida to beat Georgia. You do want Florida to beat Georgia.
Okay.
So that's tier 2. Now, tier 1. Likely upsets. Not likely, but more plausible. These are the ones that you should be circling and watching this weekend more than any other. Okay,
let me tell you about this first. AsiaCafe.org. AsiaCafe.org. You can check them out. One of Hook's Hangouts, and it's where I've eaten twice this week. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org, and they've got that Brazilian cocoa energy booster premix instant white coffee that's phenomenal. It's awesome. All right, Caleb, tier 1.
Tier 1 is this. These are okay. You want Michigan to beat Oregon. That's at Michigan, so it's possible, Dave, because they're going through time zones. The big ones you want Michigan State to beat Indiana. And I know Dave really wants that, but you want Indiana just out of the picture. So yes, they need to.
I want Indiana to get lost going to the stadium.
And Indiana still plays Ohio State.
Like 4 buses just driving around in circles.
Yeah, because Indiana's undefeated, so you want Michigan State to beat Indiana. The other one is.
You hear where their coach, by the way, said "Google me" recently?
Did he really? I was just saying 4 Christmases. Google me, and then he says the B word. All right, you then want the Penn State Ohio State game. You want Penn State to beat Ohio State. Penn State has no losses. Ohio State has 1. But if Penn State beats Ohio State, then all of a sudden, Dave, you're looking at Ohio State potentially being knocked out of the race. If Ohio State wins, they're both still in it firmly. And there's a chance that Ohio State could get knocked out of the race. So you want Penn State to win.
Hot.
I don't think there's any way Ohio State gets knocked out of the race.
If they lose this game, they have 2 losses. They lose another one, they're out.
Well, I know, but I think they'll be 10-2, and I think they will do everything possible to keep them in, even possibly 9-3. Because who are you going to take out of the Big Ten?
Penn State, and again, you're Penn State and Oregon. I mean, they'll probably take 3 teams like they will the SEC, 3 to 4, but still Penn State and Oregon. And that's why, but again, you want to spread your chances. So you want any of these teams to have a potential to be knocked out. Ohio State has more of a chance than Penn State if you look at their schedule. Penn State loses this game, they're still probably going to finish 11-1 and go. So you want Penn State to win. Now, Now we get to the two key ones, SEC ones. Tennessee's competition for the playoff spot. You want South Carolina to beat Texas A&M. You do, because Texas A&M is a team in Tennessee's way to make the playoff. Yep. But the most important game you should watch this weekend.
Wait, let me play the opposite. Don't you want Texas A&M and who's second right now in the SEC?
LSU, you're talking about to play for the SEC title?
Yeah.
Theoretically, you're right, but Dave, I don't think I've talked about that for a while, but I don't think Tennessee's I don't think they have the luxury yet to hope for stuff like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. They don't have the luxury yet to hope for stuff like that. They need to hope they're getting in at this point.
We're talking main course. The apple pie is still in the oven.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the most important one for that is one that could
shot in the dark analogy that actually landed.
It did. A matter of fact, one time John Chavis said when they were facing Spurrier's trickery, and they're like, "How do you deal with Spurrier's trickery all the time?" And he said, "Well, you got to worry about the meat and potatoes before you can worry about that stuff." I'm like, "Well, Spurrier's whole meat and potatoes is trickery, so like, okay."
Yeah, you know what's meat and potatoes is the draw play into the 2001 SEC championship game. That's damn meat and potatoes. I mean, it doesn't get any more meat and potatoes than that.
Yeah, and when you have
it's the draw stew.
And you had the best interior defensive line in college football history and couldn't stop it because wait, what was it? We weren't prepared for the change of offense. What do you got to do to prepare for the quarterback draw? Let me draw up this scheme to stop the quarterback draw?
Yeah,
okay.
you go to both of your defensive tackles and you say shade a gap, and that's what you do. It's not any sort of, they didn't have to go 3-4. All right, so what else?
All right, and finally, the most important game to watch this weekend if you're a Tennessee fan.
Tennessee.
Outside of Tennessee, this is for rooting interest of other.
Okay.
Arkansas, Ole Miss, and you want Arkansas to beat Ole Miss, and that's twofold. It helps your schedule strength, Dave, but it knocks Ole Miss out of the college football playoff race as a contender.
That is hands down. I mean, the confusing way that you dealt that out. That is hands down the most on point one, because Ole Miss would have 3 losses. They would be essentially out of the running for the college football playoff. And if there's a bunch of 10-2 teams, somebody's going to get left out, and it could be Tennessee. Plus, it makes that Arkansas loss look better. I'm totally with you on those.
Yes, that should be a tier on its own, honestly, because it helps Tennessee in like multiple ways. So yeah, I think that's the most tier one. Watch that game over any other game, guys.
Went a little long today. Let's get our final on the scariest Vol, as we've been doing that throughout the show. We had quarterfinals, and it led up to this. The scariest Vol is
Al Wilson at 52% scares people more than Doug Atkins, Reggie White, and Jansen Jackson. I get it. If you see Al Wilson in an interview, I have never seen that dude smile.
Oh, I've seen him smile.
Never seen him smile. I've seen him in interviews. I mean, I know even Knox News used to do these videos for YouTube where they would interview him when he's out on a golf course, and he would talk, and he talked normal, but like he had the look in his eye. He's like, "I'm talking to you normal, but I might break your jaw if you look at me the wrong way."
Yeah, that was our good stuff, Caleb. We will visit with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. It'll be Ollie Lane will join us. He always brings the knowledge, and we love that. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, or as it says down there in honor of Halloween, Boo Carter. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.